Alright, I'm back with yet another quick Pauper deck tech. So the list I'm looking at right now is basically my most updated, most recent version of a mono white soldiers deck. So I've built lots of soldiers lists in the past. I've just always liked the tribe and I've felt it to be pretty powerful provided it's built in the right way. So I just thought I would kind of return to the archetype again and just add some new cards or newer cards to it, just to kind of update it a little bit. So basically, I was prompted to do so after I noticed that Eagles of the North is actually a bird soldier, and so it just works well in this shell. So I decided to build a version of the soldiers deck with a slightly higher curve, just to use the Eagles. So the Eagles, of course, it's one of the classic Lord of the Rings cycling heavy hitters. So it's 6 for a 3/3 flying. It says when it enters the battlefield, creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain first strike until end of turn, which is obviously very useful in a deck that goes wide with tons of weenies like we do. And then, of course, it has plane cycling too, just for a bit of, it helps us with our mana. And in this deck, I'm running 20 lands, 18 basic planes, and 2 Idyllic Grange, which itself is a planes. So the Idyllic Grange, of course, it enters tapped unless you control 3 or more planes. When it enters untapped, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Okay, then I'll just go through the rest of the deck, beginning with the 1-drops. So I think we're only running one drop in this current version of the list, which is the classic Throbbing Inspector. When it comes to the 2-drops, first up we have Ballyrush Banneret, 2 for a 2/1. It says Kithkin spells and soldier spells you cost 1 less, so that makes it a bit more feasible for us to hard cast the Eagles of the North later on. Then we have 2 copies of Core Skyfisher, 4 copies. Then we have 4 copies as well of Loyal Cathar, 2 for a 2/2 Vigilance. When it dies, return it to the battlefield transformed at the beginning of the next end step. And the transformed side is a 2/1 zombie soldier that can't block, but both sides are soldiers, so they benefit from our synergy. Then we have 3 copies of Militia Bugler, 3 for a 2/3 with Vigilance. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card with power 2 or less from among them and put it into your hand. So that just obviously replaces itself with yet another soldier when we play it. Then, kind of a similar thing, we have 2 copies of Search Party Captain, 4 for a 2/2. It costs 1 less for each creature you attacked with this turn. So this is often costing 1 or 2 mana. And it says when it enters the battlefield, draw a card. Then we are in the main board right now. We are running 2 copies of Veteran Armorer, 2 for a 2/2. It says other creatures you control get +0/+1. That's just to try and make us a bit more resistant to cards like Breath Weapon, which can wreck this kind of deck. Then our biggest sort of aggro payoff for being a soldier deck is Veteran Swordsmith, 3 for a 3/2. It says other soldier creatures you control get +1/+0. So with lots of soldiers on the board, we can actually be getting quite a lot of extra damage just off a single copy of this. For removal, we are running 4 copies of Journey to Nowhere. For combat trickery and just general prevention of damage, etc., we have Prismatic Strands, which is just a fantastic card in general. So it's 3 mana for. It says prevent all damage that sources of the color of your choice would deal this turn, and it has flashback. And the flashback cost is you simply tap an untapped white creature you control. So this card is just great. It can really, turn the tide of battle or just mess up a turn profoundly for your opponent. And then finally, we are running, as many white weenie lists do, Guardian's Pledge. So it's 3 mana for an instant. It says white creatures you control get +2/+2 until end of turn. So this is kind of just our finisher for once we've filled up the board. We want to just play this, crank up the team, and smack for a ton of damage. Then currently in the sideboard, I'm running 2 copies of Cathar Commando for dealing with artifacts and enchantments. So it's a soldier, 2 for a 3/1 flash, and it has pay 1, sack it, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Then we are also running 2 copies of Destroy Evil, 2 mana for an instant, destroy target creature with toughness 4 or greater, and destroy target enchantment. Then the most expensive card in the deck by far, a very powerful effect but not an essential one, is of course Dust to Dust, 3 mana for a sorcery that says exile 2 target artifacts. So it's just a 2 for 1, which is why it's so great and so expensive. Then we have 3 copies of Gutshot, just for dealing with infect decks, etc. Just very useful against decks that rely upon 1 toughness creatures. And then finally, for Graveyard Hate, we have 4 Relic of Progenitors. So as I said, I love the Soldier's archetype. and this is the list I'm playing at the moment. I will continue to play around with it and probably tweak it, but I do like it a lot. I find it fun, I find it powerful, I find it flavorful. I like tribes in Pauper, and one cool thing about soldiers is that there actually are some pretty decent tribal payoffs compared to the bulk of the other tribes in Pauper, at least. So yeah, there is reason to stick with just the one creature type in this list, I feel. Alrighty, but that is the deck. As usual, if you have ideas for the deck or suggestions for other cards or decks that I build around in future, please let me know in the comments. If you enjoy these videos and would like to keep updated with the lists that I post, please do consider subscribing because that really does help the channel. Yeah, I'll end it there. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.